What is up, guys? Goliath here from Project Tron, also known as Dogster in the last two episodes of Clip of the Week. But today I'm giving you an awesome tutorial on how to do motion tracking like I did in today's or this week's Clip of the Week in episode 3 by Astro. I actually made the cinematic for him, but I'm purposely making this video as he requested me to help him with the motion tracking. So this is what it looks like, and this is to help other people as well that are watching this. And remember, if you have any questions about some of my edits and how I do certain things or Astros, then give a buzz on my channel and or on Project Tron, and we'll do our best to fulfill that. So this is what it looks like. And as you can see, the logo transforms from a cube to the actual Tron logo itself. And that's a really cool effect that I learned how to make, and this is what Astro wanted to learn. So I'm going to show him how to motion track and how to motion track like a pro with all this sort of extra stuff. So to start off with, to be able to make this, you're going to have to record the cinematic. Now what I did is I recorded it in dolly mode on Black Ops 2. So I've got my clip here, the grind cinematic, which is just, there it is, and I'm going to import it into After Effects. So I'll get my grind cinematic and I drag it in, and hopefully this will load, which it is, thank God. Right, so I'll put it into a new composition, and as you can see, boom, there it is. So, and what you want to do first, you want to cut it down to where it starts moving, because you don't want to be wasting your time rendering pointless frames. So I'm going to press Control, Shift and D, and that will split the layer, and I'm going to delete that one. And I'm using After Effects. You can use Sony Vegas, but so long as you can render as a PNG sequence or a JPEG, because the programs that I'll be using, should have mentioned this at the beginning, sorry, but is Cinema 4D, Beaujeu and After Effects. I use Photoshop to make the logo and Photoshop to make the object path, but we'll go into that in a minute. But that doesn't matter, you don't have to use a logo to be able to do this. You can use text. So let's cut it down to where it stops. So I'm probably just going to stop it about there, and I'm going to delete that, and then I'm going to go back one frame and press N on the keyboard, and that's the end of the composition. And then I'm going to go to the beginning and press B, and what it does, it brings these two bars to the beginning and the end. Right click, trim word to comp area, and you are sorted. So that is basically your video trimmed, and that's what you want. So what you do from here is you want to render this out. So say if you're using Sony Vegas, do the same thing, cut it and then render it. And I record it 59.94, that's the best that you can possibly do for Xbox. So please record in 59.94 if you're using that, and make sure your frame rate there is at 59.94. And make sure I would prefer if you use JPEG, because JPEG's a slightly better image quality than PNG. But you can use PNG. I've seen other people use it, but JPEG is just better. So just use JPEG. And the quality, as you can see, you need to make sure that's on full, which is at 10, and you just press OK. So what you do now is you want to make sure, before you hit render, please don't just hit render. So you want to make sure you make a new folder first, because if you don't, you're going to have an absolute ton of rubbish on your desktop. It's just going to be hundreds of photos, and you're just going to think, oh shit. So you want to make sure you have a new folder. I've already done, because basically my computer crashed. This is the second time I'm doing this now. So to save time, I've already rendered it out. So you make your folder on your desktop. I'm calling it tutorial. So say I've just done that. Then I make inside that, I want to make one called sequence. Now you don't have to, but I want to keep everything that I've done to make this project inside one folder, and then the sequence is going to be in another inside the first one. So it keeps it all tidy, and you know where it is. So then what you do is you just press save in here. It'll all be empty. So imagine none of these grinds cinematic pictures are here, and you just want to hit save, and then you just hit render. Now what that'll do is that'll render out. So I'm gonna come out of this, and you don't need to save it. Say I've just rendered it, and I am now over to my sequence. So I go tutorial. So I open it up from the desktop and go to sequence, and as you can see, look, I've got all my JPEG images of the cinematic, which is what you want. And Beaujeu, you have to do it this way because Beaujeu only works by sequence, and that's how it motion tracks. basically frame by frame. It's basically doing it's an automatic frame by frame motion tracking tool instead of you having to do it yourself automatically in After Effects. So it's awesome. So that's what you want to do. So once you've done this, I don't know what the hell that is. You want to open up Bojou itself. I recommend getting it. There are ways of getting it, and yeah, you should get it. So I'm going to open up Bojou, and hopefully this will load pretty quick as well. It's already been open once today. Come on. There we go. And you just want to import your sequence. So, and I have to go back all the time for mine. I don't know why. But desktop, tutorial, sequence, and you have to select the first one. Make sure you don't select like the one over here, because it won't work. You want to select the first one to the lowest number. So say yours was, I don't know, 182 like mine. Usually it's 00000, but I don't know why mine's 0. Oh, that's because I cut it down. That's why. Say if you didn't cut it down, it'd be 00000. But because I cut it down, you just go from the lowest number, hit that, and press open. Usually it's always in order, but I'm just saying, just in case it's not. So 59.94 is the frame rate I use for my clip, and I'm going to hit apply, and I'm going to hit 59.94 again and press apply, and then it'll be done. So you're going to do is press close, and as you can see, your sequence is now imported into Bojou. So I can move it all about and go, yay, it's working, whippy. And now let's get on to the next bit. So you want to press track features, and make sure you hit advanced and scroll over, and just make sure you select it. I always go one from the top, just because it will take a little bit longer, but it will make more motion tracks and more opportunities for you to get the right points. So I would advise going quite high, but you will have to wait a little bit longer, but it's worth it, because the less tracks you have, the less the motion track will look realistic, and it will just look crap when you waste your time. So what you want to do is you want to make sure you go up to about that sort of stage on the sensitivity, and then I'm going to hit start. So this is going to take a little while, so I'm going to cut the video from here, but once it's done I'll be back. So yeah, see you in a sec. Okay, so we're back, and it's now been tracked. Hey, and yeah, now we're going to go on to the next stage. So as you can see, if I want to run through all the frames, see all the motion tracking points, and there's absolute tons of them. So you see it's done a pretty good job, and it looks pretty cool and confusing at the same time, but it makes sense. Let's put it that way. So let's go to camera solve, and this may take another little while, so I might have to stop the video, see how it goes, but we just want to make sure it's on sequence 1, which it is, and go to optimize camera path smoothness. Now what this does is it gives you points where it knows it's going to be best for the motion track. It doesn't give you every point, it sort of reduces the amount, doesn't reduce it too much, you don't have any points, but it gives you ones that you know are stable, and it won't allow the object to move out of place, and it actually makes it look even more like it's part of the scene. So optimize camera path smoothness, make sure it's at all frames, and then hit start, and hopefully it won't take too long, but I'm probably guessing it will, because it's got absolute ton of frames to go through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video again, and I guess I'll see you when it's done. Alright. Right, so here we are with our motion track scene completely now, with all the little points around, and as you can see they've changed from crosses to little dots, which is what you want. So now we're going to go over to the place where we think we want our motion track to be, and I know I want it to be over here as it was last time, so I went over to this sort of frame area, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add scene geometry. Now this allows you, or tells the program whereabouts you would like your basically your motion tracked object to be. So I'm going to add a chord from hint, and I'm going to change the type to an x-axis, which is, if you do a little bit of maths, this is really simple, but it's from left to right, or right, so it doesn't matter, it's the x, it's a horizontal. So we'll go to that, and what you need to do is you need to select 2 points. So all you need to do is you want to select 2 points. So I'm going to go from yellow ones, I think are slightly better than the blue ones because they're more motion tracked. So you click on one, and you press hold control and click on the other, and you're going to go press connect to selected and update the chord frame. So once you've done this, I'm going to click off the scene here, and I'm going to make the Z axis, which I'm going to click these two. You want to add another chord from hint before you do this, actually, because it will go wrong otherwise. You want to connect to selected, update the chord frame, and I'm going to insert a test object. See, as you can see now, that looks pretty well motion tracked for a first try. And you see it stayed in the scene, it knows its rotation, it's pretty much set. And that is pretty good for a first try. So as you can see though, when you're back here, before you even get there, on the right hand side you can still see over there that the little ladybird's popping out still. As you can see by the door here, the ladybird's still there. Now as you can imagine, you're putting an object like a layer on top of this video, so it's gonna, you can't just, the program's not clever enough to realise that the door is actually in front of it, when theoretically you're putting an object on top of the image or the video. That's what you're practically doing, but you're motion tracking it to a certain point. So to get rid of that, you have to use something called rotoscoping in After Effects. I'm not sure how you would do it in Vegas, but I know how to do it in After Effects. So that's why I prefer people using After Effects. I think it's just a lot better in my opinion, and there's a lot more to it. So yeah, so you can see it's pretty well motion tracked, it's in the place where you need it to be, and it looks pretty awesome. So I'm going to delete this ladybird thing because I don't need that anymore, and I'm going to press File Save, which is what I want to do, and hopefully it'll bring up a little menu somewhere. There we go. And I'm going to save it in the folder that I've created called tutorial. You don't want to import it where the sequence is because that's by itself. You just want to leave the sequence where it is. So open up tutorial, and now you can see just leave it as untitled project. It doesn't matter, you know what it is. Then you want to export camera solve, and I'm going to leave it as sequence 1, camera solve 1, and I want to make sure it's Cinema 4D because that's the program I'll be using. I'm not using After Effects or Element 3D. And I'm going to leave it as untitled project, might as well. And I'm going to scale the scene by 1000, and that will then make sure when you import stuff it's not absolutely humongous and it's horrible. So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure the scale scene's by 1000, and that's practically it. So let's hit save. And now once we've done that, we're going to head over to our tutorial folder, and as you can see, we've automatically got a Cinema 4D folder set up for us. So what we'll do is we'll open that folder up. Now this is the fun part. This is where you actually start to design your motion tracking object itself. So what I did was I actually imported a object path to create this, but I will show you text as well because I'm nice like that, I guess. So hopefully this will load and it won't take too long because I haven't opened this program yet today, so this is might take a little while. But I will show you the path that I made. Where is it? Oh, okay. So, okay, you can leave it on 10 centimeters. That's fine. You don't need to change that. But I had made my, where is it? Let's have a look. Job projects, Projectron, logo. Basically, it's this thing here. This black logo, and you make a path around the edge, and Cinema 4D recognises it, and you can turn it into 3D by using something called Extrude NURB. So I'm going to show you how to do that, but you have to make a work path and you make it into an Illustrator file. That's for another day, but for the meantime, if you just want to add text by itself, then that's fine. But this is like custom objects basically is what I did. So I'm going to make a new material. So once you're in here in Cinema 4D, just opened it up, new material, tick off specular, and you want to load this texture, and you want to make sure you go to your sequence, so grind cinematic. I'm pretty sure this is it, but we're just going to double check. I don't know why it's split in half. Someone help me. Is there any way of getting rid of that? Change your view. That's nice. High preview plane. There we go. Right. So let's go to our tutorial, and I want to open up the sequence. So you select the first one again, like you have before in Beau-Jeu. Open that up, and you want to hit no. You click on the image itself, go over to animation and press calculate. See, Beau-Jeu automatically makes the frame rate at 60, so it doesn't matter, it's just upped it by 0.3, which doesn't matter, it doesn't change anything, but it certainly doesn't improve it. So don't think upping the frame rate is going to improve a video. Actually it doesn't, so don't So if you've got like a 30 frame per second video and say, oh yeah, I could just move it up to 60 frames, it's not going to help. So don't do that, because it will just basically repeat the image twice and you look horrible. So once you've done that, drag the timeline out and hit over here and go to background, and you want to drag the animated sequence onto the background here. So now you can see you got your sequence, it's nicely tracked already in Cinema 4D, and you've got your floor and God knows what else. So what I'm going to do now, let's just say we was going to add text. So pretty simple, add mode text. This is probably going to take a little while to load, I think. Let's see if I can, yeah, it's frozen. I've got like 2,000 fonts, so this is going to take ridiculous to load up any sort of font. So hopefully this won't take too long to load. But basically what will happen is you'll see this text and it will be motion tracked throughout. That's the fun side to it, I guess. But now, difficult bit for most people is how to design it and make it look realistic within the scene. So there's a couple ways that I'll be showing you how to do this. It'll be well, Archie watched a tutorial on Saw Ninja. He's another editor, quite like him. He does an awesome Cinema 4D tutorial on this as well, on how he made the scene look realistic, such as reflections, things like that. So I'll be showing you how to do that. So hopefully this bloody thing will load. It's gonna take 10,000 years, clearly. Oh god, right. So in the meantime, Project Tron, team I'm in, or team I lead, matter of fact, we've got a recruitment challenge up. So if you are interested in joining, make sure you check that out, because yeah, it's up until I think the 5th of December. But yeah, it's definitely worth taking a look at, and if you think you're able to join, then go ahead and apply for that. But I've never known Cinema 4D to be this shit. What is going on? I might stop the video here if I don't come back to it until this fucking thing loads, but clearly it's being racist. But in the meantime, I'm gonna go to YouTube, see if it will even load that sack of shit. Come on. Oh Jesus Christ. Okay, my computer is probably gonna go blue screen and kill itself. It's probably worth it anyway. Right, I'm gonna stop the video here, but I'll be back when I have fixed Cinema 4D. Yay! Right, see you in a sec. Right, I'm back, and literally when I stopped the bloody video, it started working again. It's typical. Right, but anyway, here's your text. I'm gonna make it bigger, so you hit the scale tool and increase the size, make it big, and then you just want to, like, as you can see, if you was to go through it, see it's motion tracked nicely, but you think, wow, I can actually see it through the wall, and that's what I said before. Basically, you're putting an image on top, so that's when I guess After Effects helps in the next bit. But say you just wanted text and you wanted to position it, let's say in the air, move this over, give it a little bit of rotation just to level it out a tiny bit to make sure it fits in with the scene, and I want it to look like it's head on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the depth of this to make it 3D, and I'm going to move it over a little bit. And you do expect it to move. If you're going to move the actual object itself, do expect it to slide a little bit and look a little bit out of place. But it is a pretty good motion track, so it's not bad. And if I was to sort of do that, that's what it looks like at the moment. Like, if you did nothing to it, I've seen that in a few episodes and videos, and I think that is horrible. Like, that is just disgusting. You just kill yourself if you've done that, because that is just not right. What you want to do, you really should invest time in watching videos like these, because it puts your channel down so much, and you might put a lot of work into it, but it's not worth it if you just leave it like that. So what you want to do now is definitely choose a different font, because people are wrong. They use this, it's horrible, the same font, and you just want to make sure you use anything but the Segoe UI. It's just not right. Just don't use it. So as I said, I got 2,000 fonts, so this is going to be horrible to load. See, I've seriously chucked too much stuff on my computer. It's ridiculous. So hopefully this thing will load, and it won't be like last time where it's pain in the arse and crashes and made me commit suicide. But hopefully this will load, and I'll probably choose a simple font that I quite like and I've used before, called SF Automation. So as you can see, I've got an absolute shit ton of fonts. So let's use this one, nice and clean sort of design like this. Text, yep, awesome, cool beans. And motion tracked, and to make it look a little bit better, I'm going to scale this down a tiny bit and move it over a tiny bit, something like that. And as you can see, text, yay, text, this looks awesome. But if you was to render it, it still looks like, what the hell is that supposed to be? So the next stage of this would definitely be to, I'm going to increase the depth actually a little bit first, and I'm just going to stylize it a little bit. So I'm going to Control C, Control V to copy it, go over to caps, hit fillet, and hit fillet again. Now if I was to pre-render this, you can see it looks a little bit better, something a little bit different, but still shit. So quite frankly, so what we're going to do is now go over to File Merge, and I'm going to add a Lightroom here, and I'm going to position this to where it needs to be. So I'm going to drag this up. So you should invest your time in looking for Lightrooms as well, because they are amazing. If you do get a Lightroom, make sure you put it to a compositing background and ensure that you've put Seen by Camera off, so you don't actually see the Lightroom in the render. But I'll show you how to do that in the next stage after this, how to make things look like they're there when they are. So I'm going to position this to where the text is, rotate it a little bit, and there we go. So now once we've got this, I'm going to get rid of the SAW logo itself, and that can go. But it still doesn't look great. I mean, it's got a tiny bit to it, it looks a little bit more in place, but it's just a bit dull. So we're getting there, we're making it better. So we're going to go over to our render settings, and we're going to go to effect, and we're going to hit ambient occlusion, just whack it on, global illumination, and a bit of object glow. Now what this will do is it will make the object look so much cleaner, the curves will look cleaner, it will just look a lot better. So now we've got our text and it just looks okay. It's not great, it's pretty good. I mean, it's getting there. So now we've got our text there. What we're going to do is we're going to add now a sphere, and I'm going to increase the size, and drag this where text is and move it up, and make sure it's about there. That'll do. And I'm actually going to move this SAW logo up a little bit, and I'm going to hide the sphere because I want to see if the light hits the front of the text, because that's what we'll see mainly. So let's say something like that, and I'm going to add the sphere back, and what I'm going to do is make sure it's, yep, it's swallowed the entire text, I think, nearly. Oops, that's the wrong one. I'm going to make sure I select a sphere first. We're going to make sure it covers the entire text, so then you don't get one half of the text that's got reflection and the other half hasn't, because that's what we'll be doing here, is adding reflection to the text itself. So something like that. There you go, so it covers the whole thing, and now we are cool. So what we're going to do now, if I was to render this out, so I'm saying stage by stage, you've just basically got this sphere in the middle of the map, and you don't want that. So we're going to drag the background onto the sphere, and we're going to right click, Cinema 4D tags, hit composite in, and this is where it's what I was on about before. You want to get rid of the cast shadows, receive shadows, receive shadows, make sure it's composite in background, seen by cameras off, and hopefully this should be what it looks like. And now it looks a little bit better. It's got the shadows to it, it's got the more realistic feel to the actual text itself. So now what we're going to do is make custom materials. So I'm going to make a, actually I can probably just pick one. Let's go for this crazy one, just do a random and see what happens. But so you got like a pink, and if you really wanted to take it a step further, you go to reflection, you want to turn it up, And now you can see, hopefully this will work, you've got the reflection of the map. Now that doesn't look nice at all really, but you get the idea. Just the colours don't really go well with the map. So you'd want to also use colours that would blend sort of well with the map. You don't want to use something that just looks like that, because it sort of stands out and doesn't look so nice, I guess. So let's use a white to go over the mode text like that, and you can also do effects to the text and things like that, so that looks a little bit better. So we've got our text, and it's going to have a bit of reflection on the map. We're going to make sure we've... Oops, didn't mean to do that. Got some reflection going on. I'm going to put this to a soft shadow, and I'm going to render this, and hopefully it will look a lot better, and it will blend in a bit more. So there we go, we've got our text, and it looks like it's part of the scene. You've got the reflection of the map bouncing off of the text, and it just looks like it's in place. Now that's what you want. So once you've done this, you can just, I guess, render it out. If you just wanted plain text and that's as far as you want to go, if you didn't want the effects, then you're done, I guess. But make sure you cut off or go in After Effects and invest time in making sure, because this looks like it's in front now. It looks dodgy because of this wall here on the left, so make sure you rotoscope. But to make what I did, you can do this with text as well, but I'm just going to show you exactly how I done it without the text. Let's get rid of this. I'm going to hide the sphere for now, and I'm going to merge my logo. So let's go to graphics, and let's go to job projects. That's the one. Project Tron, logo design, and import the path. Hit OK, and now I'm going to move this over and hit the timeline, and it will put you back to where you was before, so it's fine. And let's put this down, and I'm going to hit Extrude NURBS. Actually, that was a bad idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that. The first thing you want to do, what I realised I didn't understand first off, but before you do any of this, you want to make sure you import it, and then you want to hit Extrude NURBS straight away, because you don't want to move the logo first. You want to make sure that the logo is a child of the Extrude NURBS, because if you add it in after, the Extrude NURBS will go all funny, and the logo, you'll just go funny. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure you put Extrude NURBS first, and then move the Extrude NURBS, and then position it to where you want it to be. So that's just from experience, so trust me on this. You want to add Extrude NURBS first. So position it to where you want it to be. I know it wants to be about there. I'm going to move it forward a tiny bit. So now it looks like it's proper motion tracked in there, and if I was just to leave that, it just looks a bit poopy. So if I was to add the sphere back, I'd notice that it sticks out the side a little bit, but we can fix that. And I'm going to add the Extrude NURBS to have more depth to it, so that's what I'm going to do first, is to add the depth. So go to Object and Increase Depth, and what we're going to do now is, once I'm happy with that, which I'm pretty happy with, and you can see it's a 3D logo now, so it looks cool. And I'm going to put the sphere over the top. So it's quite a lot of effort to be able to do this, but it does make it look a lot cleaner, and that's the main sort of thing you want to get out of this, is a nice clean design. So now we've got the sphere there. You can see that it just looks a bit dodgy at the top because of the light source. If I was to get this logo Lightroom thing to move up a bit again, something like that, and then it looks alright. It ain't great because it just needs to have that. Now you see you've got the reflection on the map. I'm just confused to why that logo is go away. It's slightly curved. So I need to rotate it. Right, okay, so now I'm going to rotate it to where I want it to be. and let's position this about there. So now we've got that, and it looks quite nice. And if I was to go around, yeah, it looks fine. So you've got a motion track logo, the whole way across, and if I was to now introduce the sphere again, it will look like it is part of the scene with the reflections all over it. Now that might be a bit too much, so you can always adjust this and reduce reflections and just do it again and see what happens. So you've got your material here, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get rid of this sphere again, just so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to add a cube into the objects, and I'm going to increase the size. I want it to be like a little bit bigger than the logo. I want it to fit inside, so that's the objective, so it all looks like it's breaking up and transforming at the same point. So let's move this over. Doesn't have to be a perfect cube, it can be whatever shape you want. It can be a cylinder, it can be, I don't know, whatever you fancy. So let's put this there, make the size bigger, position it to where you want it to be, and make sure it doesn't poke out anywhere, and it all fits inside the cube like that. So now move the timeline and it'll put you back. Now that's a pretty big cube, if I'm honest, but you want to make sure it all fits inside the sphere. So you can always reduce the size of some of the stuff. I'm actually going to resize this to about there. So I really don't want it to be any bigger. Slightly like that maybe. And position it a tiny bit to the left. And now if you want to adjust this, you want to select both cube and extrude NURBS and hit scale tool and reduce them both to about a reasonable size. Should be like there. And then I'm going to introduce the sphere again and see if it completely fits within its radius or circumference, whatever you want to call it, its area, whatever, and see what it looks like. So we've got that. I'm going to copy the material over, and as you can see, you've got the reflection of the map on the cube, and what you want to do now is make this become a Thrausi sort of object on both of these. And this is going to take a little while, so it's quite a long tutorial, but this is like where it makes some edits a heck of a lot better than others. So if you're willing to put the time in, then just stay with me for this. But at the plugins, you want to go to Thrausi, hit Thrausi again, go to Voronoi, split it to something however you want. I'm going to say, let's say 30 pieces, and I'm going to hit break now. So what will happen is the cube will now start to break into 30 different pieces inside the cylinder, and this will enable each piece to move its own different way when you press the transform. So what we're going to do now is go along the timeline to where it was. I'm going to get rid of this this sphere thing, but make sure on the effect or dynamics you want to take enabled off on the dynamics, because if you was to render this out and you was back over here, you would notice that the cube would drop out of place and it won't be where it needs to be. I know it's not doing it now, but you can see it. Look, there you go. Look, it's going to go under the floor and it's gone out of the scene. So you take enabled off, or else when you come to rendering it, you're just going to render a plain cinematic. So make sure enabled's off, and hopefully this will sort itself out. I did last time. Go back to the first frame and then go back. There we go. That's what happens. So now it doesn't fall. It literally sits to where it needs to be, where it is, which is what you want to happen. So we do the same thing again for the extrude NURBS. We want to make sure that we hit plugins, Thrausi, Thrausi again. I'm going to split into 30 pieces. Why not? Make sure it's on Voronoi. I don't like to use Voronoi. It doesn't matter if it's random, but I just like that style. And wait for it to break. And then once you've done this, you're going to have separate materials that you want maybe to break into different colours or whatever. So this will make sense in a second. what we're going to do now is open up this, and you can see you've got your inside, hopefully whereabouts would it be? Right, you've got your inside material and you've got your outside material. So the inside is what I'm going to edit. I want to make it like a black, glossy sort of black. So let's go over here, make this a darky colour. I'm going to hit this to object soft shadow, I just like the look of it, and I'm going to go to a reflection, turn it down a little bit. I want a little bit of luminance on the black, and I'll probably I might even change the reflection to a Fresnel, so it makes it a little bit more glossy, I guess. So let's try that. So we've got our inside, and now what we're going to do is add a transform effector to it. So let's go from this one, we know is going to be the extrude NURBS, and this one's the cube. So we're going to make this one as well. Actually, yeah, alright, let's make this one glossy black as well. So let's try and, I wonder if I can copy the material here. That's even possible. Let's see if it will let me do it. Be new if it can. That ain't gonna work. Right, so we're gonna go color, and I'm going to change it to black. Hit objects or shadow as well. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. I'm gonna try and make it as similar as possible. And I'm gonna go to Fresnel, and I'm going to reduce the mix strength. Okay, we're gonna turn this down. I'm going to try and make it a little glossy black like that. So now all the pieces on the inside change colour. And yeah, it looks alright. I don't know why there's two cube houses. It's confusing. But, let's if I get rid of that. Right, so now if I was to go through the frames or whatever, you can see that this one has the glossy, this one has the glossy, so they're all cool. So if I was to now render this out, it would look basically like nothing's happened at the moment, which is fine. So I'll know that the start frame where I want this effect to happen on the transform would be around let's just say 383. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, so 383 is where I want the effect to start. So what I would do is I would go to now plugins and add the transform plugin, and I'm going to add another transform plugin, and for this one I want the cube to be placed here, and hit refresh. Then I want it to be the transition, I want it to be out, so I want it to happen out. That's basically what I mean. So let's go 383 is the start frame, and I want the end frame to be at the end, which is, no, actually no, I don't want it to be at the end. I want it to be probably around, let's say 650, so it doesn't finish at the end, because I want it to have a little bit where, like I did before, I should just go 600. So we'll finish at 600 frames. So basically the effect will be happening for a few seconds. So if I was to turn off this cube again, not cube, sphere, you'd be able to see it hopefully working. So what effect do I want it to happen? Let's think. Let's go. Yeah, let's leave it a transform. That's the one I used. Just transforms are really cool, sort of like robotic feel to it. Oh, don't tell me I've deleted the wrong blooming cube. That's gonna be a pain in the ass if it's done that. Right, maybe if I tick cube Frowsy. Yeah, there we go. Right, because you have to press the tick for some reason. But as you can see, it transforms by itself. So you've got this sort of weird transforming effect, like transformer. So it's a really nice sort of look to it. So it stays the same, it stays the same, stays the same, stays the same, and as soon as it hits 3800, whatever it was, it will transform like this, and it will sort of dissolve into the logo. So I want this to happen to this one as well, but I need to remember I'll take dynamic off because that will destroy. So I forgot to take dynamic off on that one, and you're left with this logo at the end. So what I want to do is I want to make sure this logo also has the same effect to it. So the other transform plugin is this one. I want to drag it in, and I want to refresh, and I know I want this one to happen a little bit later. So let's say we get to about 410 frames. So 410 frames, I want this to go back there, and I want it to end not at the end. Let's say 750. So it's got 150 frames to itself, and I want the effect to be in. So it's the opposite. So it's reverse. So what happens is whilst you've got the cube going out, you've got the logo going in, and what will happen is this will now sort of break up like this, whilst the logo itself is transforming still when this is finished. So it's got this nice effect where the logo is the last thing that comes together out of, so it all blends in, it comes together. So if I was to now introduce a sphere, and let's get a really random frame, this is where it looks cool. So this is like one frame out of the whole thing of where it sort of comes together and transforms, and it's still got all the reflection on the entire map, so it looks like it's all part of it. And yeah, you can adjust some of the settings. I don't really adjust the settings, I leave them where they are, but as you can see, that looks pretty awesome. Like the way it's just messed up, and it's just so it's unrealistic, but it's realistically cool. It's like it's hard to explain, but it just looks really awesome with the effects and the way it's all set up. So that is basically what you need to do. The only problem that I found when doing this is when it gets to this stage here, if you get something like a motion track where you're coming out of a doorway and you know that the motion track is not actually in fact inside the doorway like this, because this is how it will render out with a big cube like on the door. You know that cube isn't there, that's unrealistic. Like what you need to do is you want to start it from about where it's just about to happen, so you don't waste any frames, you don't waste any rendering time. So let's say about here we're at 382 frames. So you want to go to your settings, you want to go to save, you want to make sure it's a movie, or select it to wherever you want. Let's say desktop and go let's type in whatever. Let's go QuickTime movie, options, make sure it's at 60 frames, H.264, hit OK, and on the output you want to go to manual, which is quite important, and you want to go to 382. Oh, that's 282. 382 frames, and you want to make sure that the end frame is the last frame out of the scene. So there's something like, let's just go 771. I think it's 771. If it is, I'm a guild. 782. It doesn't matter. But so you go to the end frame and then you just hit render, and it will literally render between the 382, which is about here. So from here, and it will just render all the way out until the end. Now once you've done that, you're gonna have to come back to this, and what you want to do is you want to get rid of literally everything that you've done. So you want to save it, and then you want to come over here and get rid of all the sphere. You get rid of the sphere, the transform, but you want to keep the Lightroom. You have to keep the Lightroom. And actually you can keep the sphere, just delete basically these four, so you've got nothing in the way, and it literally is just that. So you've got your scene as it is. So what this means, what I mean by this is you render every single frame, because it will look different otherwise if you just cut out the clip, because it's a JPEG sequence. So render it out again, but render it from every single frame. So now what will happen is I've done this before, so I've kept the cinematic scenes. So I've got my, I'm sorry if it's laggy actually, it might be laggy when I record my screen on this, but part one is basically what I told you is the last bit, where you delete everything and render it out as it is. So you've got your sequence without any objects in the motion track. So hopefully this will load, because this computer is not very good with QuickTime. But this part 1 is basically just the cinematic itself without any objects, if it wants to load at all. But I'm not going to bother saving this, but because I've already done this and my mouse is frozen. Work. Right, so don't save. You need to save it, but I don't because I've already done it. So as you can see, this is literally just the scene by itself. There's nothing in the way, and yeah, and it's all at 60 frames, so it'll match up, which is what you want it to do. And then if I was to go on my part 2, which is where I rendered it basically from the doorway going to the end. So here it is. So I've got my doorway to the end, and it breaks up, and then it will finish there. So that's what I did. So now you can see it covers up at certain points. So there you can see it's in front when it shouldn't be, because that's not legit. And there as well, you can see it all sort of messes up. So to fix this, what you now need to do is the final bit is to go into After Effects again, and you want to boot this up, and you want to use something called rotoscoping, and that will cut out certain parts of the clip that you want to be in front. So it's almost like relayering it again. So wait for this to load. But yeah, as I said, in the meantime, just a reminder, recruitment challenge is still up, so if you are good at editing or getting clips, check it out. But yeah, also I support the editors in the team. I help them edit, and I'm releasing these tutorials to help them edit, and it's also beneficial for the people that watch the videos as well, so sort of doing quite well. So if you haven't got After Effects and you use Vegas, I am not 100% sure how you would fix this. You'd have to sort of go on a different tutorial, unfortunately, to figure that one out. I am an After Effects person. It is absolutely awesome compared to Vegas in my opinion, but I just don't understand Vegas at all. So I think After Effects is a lot cleaner layout. There's so much more you can do with it, and yeah, I'm just a bit of a bias towards After Effects. So wait for this to clean up. Actually, to be honest, the only benefit of Vegas is you don't have to wait for it to pre-render every time. You do in After Effects, but yeah, that's the only thing that draws me back about After Effects, is the fact you have to wait ages to see your video in RAM preview. Right, but I suppose that's because it's so powerful, I guess. So let's go to our desktop, and I'm going to open up the Grind cinematic. So I've got part 1 and my part 2. So I'm just going to drag both of these into the project files and wait for these to load. The files will be quite big because they are Blu-ray edition rendering things. So don't worry about that, because when you re-render it'll be small anyway. So I'm going to drag both of these into the composition area, hit OK. And I need to find out now where they overlap with the 2 frames. So they should literally be about here. I'm going to put this, so go right into the end and then go forward a frame, and if I put this there, you only want to select the top one, don't want to select both. You'll see it overlaps a little bit, so it goes 1 there, there. So it goes back a frame there. So how about if I move over 1 frame, go back to there. Yeah, so basically it freezes for a frame. It doesn't matter, but what you could do is delete this frame, if it'll allow me to delete this frame. Control Shift D. Okay, why are you not doing it? Whatever. So we can just leave it like that, and as you can see, you've got your cinematic on top of the layer underneath. So what you need to do now is copy this layer here by duplicating it and then dragging it to the top, and then calling this rotoscope. Come out of this by pressing enter, and then okay, you being a retard. Oh, you being a retard. Right, there we go. Rotoscope layer. I'll just call it. Actually, I'm just going to call it roto. It's so much easier. And I'm going to cut it down to where I need it to be, which is literally about there. So I don't need that anymore. And I'm going to hide this layer, and I'm going to go to the point where it literally peeks out the side. So I'm going to get rid of this, turn it on, and I did the wrong thing there. Need to keep that, but we need to get rid of this one. Right. So now it's poking out the side. Now all you've got to do is go to your rotoscope layer, go to the first frame, and you're going to start drawing up the doorway basically on how to. Okay, it's being retarded again. So yeah, it pokes out the side there. So we're going to go over to our roto layer, which is this one. Turn it on. Cool. Something like that. So I'm going to turn this one off. Make sure it's right at the end. So double click on this, and now you're going to go to your roto and draw basically a green line. And as you can see, it's sort of automatically there, done pretty well. So you go frame by frame, and you just want to watch it sort of make its own effect out of it. So basically what you're doing is you're cutting out this layer to where you want it to stay. So you're making sure it tracks the right place. This way you have to go frame by frame. This is a little bit time consuming, but it does work and it makes it look realistic. And if you don't do this and you've got a cinematic scene like this, it looks really out of place. And all that work you've put in, you might as well do this. So I'm not going to worry about those little white wires because they'll take ages. So I'm not going to worry about those. If you press Alt, it will turn red and it will basically delete back the area you've overlaid. And so you go through each frame like this. There should be enough by now, I would have thought. If I come out of this. Yeah, right. Okay, so now if I was to play this in slow motion, it looks a bit, I don't know, a bit dodgy. But because it's in white, it doesn't really matter, and it'll be happening so fast you don't really notice it. If I was playing it fast, it literally does just look like it's being coming around the corner. Actually, I might as well I'll play it and see what happens. So let's go a few frames forward. So now you can see what it looks like. Oh yeah, another thing is you want to delete the actual roto layer after you're done, or else it will cover up the whole scene. There we go. So if I was to play it from beginning here, and if I was to leave it, it literally just looks like it swings round out of the corner, and there's no yeah, it doesn't look like it's part of the door. So it happens so quick it doesn't even have to be perfect. I could just leave it like that. I mean, if you want to be perfect about it, you can, but it doesn't even matter. You can't even notice it. It's that, but you could definitely notice the block here on the left needs to be done. So what we're going to do is do that now. And I'm going to Control C, Control V this layer, and I'm going to definitely drag this on top. And I'm going to take the eye off of this, and I'm going to see when the effect needs to start happening, which is about there. So I'm going to Control Shift D, get rid of this, boom. Make this a roto layer, and let's go onto here, turn the layer on, and I'm going to zoom in by pressing Control plus. I would use my mouse. I might need to use my mouse. I'm gonna have to use my mouse. I have to plug my mouse in quickly because I can't use the hand tool if I don't use my mouse for some reason. It doesn't allow me to do it on my laptop, so I'm gonna plug my mouse in. But this is pretty intense tutorial. Sorry about that, but people want to know how to do it, and there's a lot of work in editing, so why is it not working? Everything's just not working. It's down. We're actually going to start quitting. Oh, what a retard. I put it in the wrong way. Just being a retard, that's what it is. Right, so I've got my mouse and I've got nowhere to put it on my desk, but so now if I use the hand tool, I cannot use the hand tool because apparently I'm not even in After Effects. Right, I can use the hand tool and I can move this by pressing H on the keyboard and using your mouse, and you can click it around and move it. So I'm going to draw roughly where it needs to be. So I'm going to press Alt and get rid of this little bit that's sticking out here. So the more precise you are, the more realistic this scene is going to look. I don't need to do any more than that. Like, that's fine the way it is. Don't need to rotoscope anymore. It's only the edge of that block it covers. So you see a little bit sticking out here. You want to just cover that up. And if you go forward a few frames, just draw a little green. If you don't make any changes, draw a little green line, because it's creating keyframes. And if you was to go like 10 frames ahead and then change it, it will slowly make that change throughout those 10 frames. So you want to make sure like every like 3 or 4 frames you put a green line through the middle of it, just to ensure that it doesn't make slow changes, it makes sudden changes. Otherwise it won't look as good. So let's go forward. Alright, there we go. So now it will look a little bit better. But yeah, there's a lot of effort in this, so if I was you and you've just started out and you're watching this thinking, oh my god, this is so much effort, I'd advise you just to miss all of this After Effects bullshit. Just go for cinematics that aren't complicated. I mean, they look good if they're complicated, and ones like these look more realistic, if I'm honest, if you go through all of this and you put objects in front of it, because it looks more like it's part of the scene. If it's literally just floating in midair, like it would have been, like, it just doesn't look as good. So if you have things in front of it and it appears around corners and it hides behind objects, it just looks like it's part of that scene. It's within the video, not on top of the video. So it's just these little things that just make a edit just look so much better. So I'm not sure how far through I am, but if I was to cancel out of this, you can see that it is now hiding behind this roto layer, which is quite cool. So I don't need to do any more to it. There you go. And I'm going to, oh no, it's leaving the roto layer about there. So I'm going to press Ctrl Shift D, get rid of that. And now, as you can see, if I was to play through this scene, I'm going to actually render this for you. Let's see what happens. You'll notice that the it sits behind the object on the left and on the right. It happens so fast you can't see it on those chords, and it just looks like it's behind it, and there's just so much more to it. So theoretically, guys, that's it. That's all I did. That's the tutorial for today. It's probably gonna be super goddamn long. I've been talking for ages, and this is like my second time in doing it because it's frozen at the beginning, But yeah, so that's basically it, and I hope you understand it. If you don't, please contact me, and if you want to join, remember Project Tron, and have support from me, then apply for the recruitment challenge and contact me on Skype. So thank you very much for staying with me and watching this. This is a pretty intense tutorial for the first one, I guess, but people want to know how I did it, so there you go, and good luck. See you later.